Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar that's presented by Sandler Training, and more specifically myself, Chad Banman, the owner of Sandler Training. Want to welcome the people onto the webinar that we know, people we've worked with in the past clients, current clients. I know there's some of you on the call today. Really appreciate you having us or joining our webinar. That's awesome. And then we'll probably have some new faces, people who haven't experienced Sandler before. So today's topic is really about leading in uncertainty. And it's for anybody who's in any kind of leadership role in a company, sales leadership, CEOs, managers, right? It's really how do we provide that leadership during these times that feel a little bit disconnected. And so that's going to be the focus of today. And we're gonna pop right into the webinar. So for those of you who don't know Sandler, just real quick on who we are, what we're about. Sandler Training, one of the larger sales and sales leadership and just general leadership training companies out there. Work with lots of different people, trainer people around the world in multiple languages. We have all those kinds of options. Of course, I only train in English, but we can train in other languages and in different environments. We've had a ton of people involved in our programs over time. Sandler's been around for a long time, and David Sandler was the architect of Sandler Training, for those of you wondering where the name comes from. And a lot of what we talk about is based on, how do we get people through the adult learning model? We talk about creating awareness. So today, we want to create awareness. There might be some things we're going to talk about on this call that you're like, absolutely, I know that, I'm doing that. You already have that awareness. You have the knowledge. The question now becomes, do you actually have the skill and have you mastered it? So we want to take you through that progression. We probably can't get you to mastery, but we can definitely get you through the first two, which is awareness and knowledge. And in this next hour, we're going to pack in a lot of those things that you'll be able to take out of this webinar and then go and apply in your world with your teams. And that's the goal. So participation, how are we going to participate? If you've been on one of our calls before, we have a chat function. I'm going to just drag it over here. You'll notice that we've got the ability to do chat. So the chat box on the right, I'm going to ask you for some feedback, some information, and then you can just type in your answers here in the chat box, and then we'll talk to some of the feedback that we're getting from people on specific questions. Try to make this as interactive as we can. It always is a little more valuable when we have people talking and interacting with us. Of course, we have over 100 people on the call today, so we can't do one-on-ones and we can't open it up to everybody. But we definitely can do comments on people, what they bring to the table in terms of chat and features like that. So the first thing that I want to ask is, what are we struggling with right now? What are some of the challenges that we're seeing as a leader? What's happening? And so this is where you would get into that chat box and just type out some of the things that you are experiencing that you want to share with us on the webinar today. So feel free to type something in there. Obviously, I've been talking to a lot of our clients over the past 2 to 3 weeks, and the struggles that I'm hearing, of course, are layoffs, right? Having to lay people off, and that's really a big challenge. I see one out here, customer fatigue. Yeah, man, I think the whole world is fatigued. I know my son said to me the other day, he says, Dad, I don't want to hear nothing about COVID-19. I'm like, I get it. I don't want to either. And so we kind of feel a little bit, I guess, personal about how, it's starting to impact us mentally. I see things like loss of control, fear, how to, address fear, but not minimize it, right? Of course, we do have people who react differently. We're going to talk a little bit to that as well today. So we want to make sure that we address it. Some of the other things that I've heard on calls, of course, is, how do we get people working from home effectively? They're not in the office anymore. I'm not seeing them. I don't know what they're doing. So I want to make sure that, we've got that in place so we know what we're doing there. Losing community, right? That's the other big thing a lot of us are feeling right now, especially if we lead sales teams. This can be a huge issue because, man, we're all about community, especially if we're on the sales side of the fence. It can be very important. Over catastrophizing, not earning our commissions. I see that one here. Staying in touch is another one I've seen. Just so many different changes and different information. So there's a lot of stuff. I think if we're all honest about it, we have struggles. We have good days. We have good hours, maybe. We have bad days. We have bad hours. All of that's happening out there to us on a regular basis. And we have to recognize and acknowledge that. So I shared this slide. If you're on my last webinar, it's just, you know what, we know that all crises are temporary. We know that intellectually, we know that we will get to another point in time. We just don't know where that is. There's a lot of things that have happened in our world throughout human existence, and we've always come out the other side. So, you know, we got to look at how we're going to come out the other side, and that's the purpose of today. So a lot of what Sandler talks about is around the BAT triangle and success. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about the attitude side of things, mental, right? Philosophy, beliefs, why do we do what we do, or the kind of the why statements. Behaviors, that's always critical as well. What are the behaviors, plans, goals, the what? What can we be doing right now? What do we need to do? And then, of course, technique, skill, personal presence is the how, right? That's the how behind what we got to do. So I believe in some good news. I don't know if anybody has seen Jim Krasinski's network news where he just talks about good news. It's kind of uplifting to watch because if you watch regular news, it's going to be a little bit disheartening. But I'm going to guess in your world today, there's something that is working. That when you look at your team and you look at your people and maybe even you look at your business, there's something that is working. So I encourage you to get on that chat function again. I would like to hear a little bit about, you know, what is working today? Like what's happening? What's positive? So I see some people are saying using virtual meetings, right? The ability to use Zoom to stay in touch with their clients is working. Transitioning from home to work actually was working. What's working? Having a job. Feeling unified as a team. We are all in this together, and that can be a massively unifying effect. It's right. We can harness that. We're all against this crisis together. I don't know if you already, you know, everybody's probably heard of Charles Darwin. He came up with the whole, you know, survival of the fittest type comment or evolution. And one of the things that often people believe is that, you know, it's the biggest thing that wins and survives the longest, like the 800-pound gorilla is what's going to go out there and survive. But really, it's not the biggest thing that survives. It's something that pivots, right? So it's what adapts to change quickest. And we are being forced to change dramatically. We're forced to change our businesses. We're forced to change how we interact with people. None of this is by our own choosing. And so as leaders, we're going to go where everybody we have on our team is going to go through the change curve. And if you're not familiar with the change curve, it starts with denial. You know what? Denial. Probably 4 weeks ago, we were in denial. This is not going to impact us. This is not a big deal. It's just like the flu. It's nothing, right? Denial. Then what do we get to? Shock and anger. As soon as they start closing the economy down, as soon as they say, you can't go here, you can't open, you're not an essential business. That's what I call the shock anger piece. And I went through that. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They're shutting everything down. The next piece of it is what they call the bargaining phase. Well, you know, maybe if I did this, maybe it will get better. We bargain. And then we get to the bottom end of the curve. And this is where a lot of your people might be at, or you might be at, which is what's called the depression, right? We're feeling sad. We're feeling anxious. We just wish things would go back to what they were. If only we could go back to a month ago. Trust me, I've been there in my own head. I've had that conversation with myself. And it's, you know, you got to get to that spot. And then you got to get out of that and get into what's called acceptance, right? Well, this is the new normal. This is what it is for now. We can't change it. We're not going to change it. This is our new normal. And then commitment to something new and different, right? Every one of your people is going to go through that curve. Every single one of them is going to experience that. We're human beings, but there's something that is working in your business. There is something that's working on your team. There is something that's working in your own mind. And we need to harness the what's working, because if we just focus on the what's not working, we're probably going to go a little bit crazy. So I want to talk a little bit about the next slide and about how do we feel about our team's personal presence. How do we feel about that? So when we talk about personal presence, you know, that's kind of that, oh my God, okay, that's my, how do I show up every single day? Are we still showing up? Are we panicked? Are we concerned, right? Everyone on your team is going through that change curve, and it's affecting their personal presence, right? So as a leader, we need to do an evaluation on where everybody is in that game. How are they doing on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being, you know what, they're They understand the reality of the situation, but they're really bought in and they've committed to new action, right? They're there. And you might have somebody else on your team that's like at the 1 stage. They're frozen in fear and they're scared and they're nervous and they don't know what to do. And you got to help them through that process. And that's going to be a process with them. It's not hey, just fix it, right? You got to help them with planning and action items, and you can help them get through that change curve as well. There's been a lot of debate online about prospecting. Can you really prospect in today's world? And if you have a sales team out there, now I know some people on this call are business to consumer. It's tough, right? You know, you used to sell across the kitchen table. Well, we're not going into people's houses anymore. You can't do that. The question is, can you sell online? Can you still book a Zoom appointment without going into people's homes? Well, you know what? I've seen some companies pivot to that and they say, yes, it can work. They are getting some meetings. I mean, they're not getting the volume of meetings, obviously, but they still are getting some. So is it possible? Maybe. Is it possible to reach out on LinkedIn or on the phone and prospect? I believe it is, done with the right mindset and the right technique. You absolutely can still look for opportunities. So the point is we got to have the technique to do it, because if you do it wrong, it's going to come off very tone deaf. Pipelines. Oh, man. Somebody had a great saying not too long ago. They say, wash your hands, wash your pipeline, right? Everybody's right now like, you know, we got to wash your hands, 20 seconds, do it right. Well, you know what? It's a great time to cleanse the pipeline. There was probably a lot of garbage in the pipeline. You haven't had time to update your CRM tool. You haven't really had a chance to evaluate what's real, what's not. It's a great time to be phoning people, asking them where they're at, what's happening in their business, and really get a handle on that pipeline. So a lot of activity can happen with pipeline maintenance. Performance, profit potential, you know, how are we feeling about that in terms of our team, in terms of the next 3 months, 6 months, what does that really look like? Here's the thing, at this point as a leader, you need to be keeping everybody busy. Busy is important. If your team has got a lot of time to sit and kind of do the old, thumb twiddling, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of mental depression going on out there, because there's nothing to do and they're going to be feeling really stressed about that. So the goal is, can we get 1% better every single day? Is there something that we can be doing or acting on to get the needle moving 1% better every day? So here's the thing, in this point in time, right, where everything stopped and we all have a lot more time than we've ever had before, if you are not or have not learned something new, or you have not changed parts of your business, or you have not learned a new skill, or your team is not learning a new skill, the issue is not time, the issue is motivation. Prior to this crazy COVID thing, the biggest impediment to change in most organizations was lack of time. Chad, I don't have time. We don't have time. If we would if we had time. Well, now we have time, and people still are not taking advantage of the time they've been gifted. And it's a gift. We have the time. Okay, what are we going to do with that time? What's our action item? What's our plan? How are we going to increase our team's skills and abilities in this time if they can't call on or interact with clients? That's what we need to be thinking about as leaders out there. And are we having really a motivation problem? I want to share a little video with you here. You might recognize it. It's from Apollo 13.
Gene, we have a situation brewing with carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the LIM module.
5 filters on the limb.
Which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half.
So I told the doctor.
They're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the limb are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
It just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we got to come through. We got to find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going too, someone.
So I love that video from Apollo 13, one of my favorite movies. And what I love about it is they say in that video clip, well, we had no contingency plan for this. We couldn't have even imagined that this would happen, right? Because in the movie, what happens, right? They have an explosion, they're losing oxygen, and now what's their problem? They got a square filter and a round filter, but they need to make the square filter fit in the round hole. It seems impossible, right? It seems like there's no way that this can happen. We didn't plan for this. Well, if you watch the movie, you know that they come through, and of course the astronauts come home, and it's based on a true story. The 6 Ps that I'm showing in front of you, this comes from our Leadership for Organizational Excellence program. And when we look at it, a lot of us, we planned, right? Maybe we planned last quarter, right? We planned about what was going to happen, what we were going to do, what new initiatives we were going to have. We maybe planned for, new product launches. We did all kinds of planning. That planning, I'm sure, did not involve what to do in a pandemic. I would almost guarantee there's nobody on this call that had that as part of their plan. Maybe you will in the future, but we certainly didn't then. So here's the point. The plan has changed, right? It's obviously gone out the window. Positions, people we have in place, the people that we have in different seats. Maybe we don't have as many right now. I know there's been a ton of layoffs in a lot of companies. So now we've moving people around. We have them maybe wearing multiple hats because we can't have 8 people. We only have 4. That could have happened. Do we have the right people and the skills to be able to handle that? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'm going to guarantee that a lot of us have switched our processes. We had to do that. We've had to switch the processes we have in order to be effective. Maybe to be faster, to be more nimble, to get stuff out the door faster, but we've had to deal with that. Performetrics, how are we measuring things, measuring success? Maybe that's changed. We're not measuring in terms of revenue. Maybe we're measuring things now in terms of customer retention. We've changed the sticks. And of course, what's our passion? What's our why? What's our reason for trying to stay in business? Maybe even that's changed. But here's the thing we know. We didn't plan for this to happen. We didn't expect it to happen, but it's happened. So we can either now take the, woe is me, I can't deal with this. My plans have gone to, they've been blown up, or we can be planning with intent. Some of you are already doing this. I've talked to a lot of my clients right now who are having regular calls with people. It's there. But we need to look at ourselves as leadership, like in a leadership role. And I'd like you to think about this. I'd like you to fast forward to 6 months from now. I want you to hit the little fast forward button. So we're now, I don't know, what is it? It's April, so we're in fall. And let's pretend the worst of this is behind us. I want you to write down how you would like your people to describe your leadership style. How would they describe your leadership style? And I want you to write down 8 adjectives. So maybe it's brave. Maybe it's awesome communicator. Maybe it's solutions oriented. I don't know what your adjectives are or what they would be, but I want you to write them down. Now, once you've written them down, that's your compass. That should be guiding your behaviors, right? So when you look at planning, if you want to be brave or if you want to be solutions oriented, what kind of planning is involved with that? What do you need to do to make sure that you are seen as solutions oriented? Intentionally reconstruct these P's, right? Maybe you need different positions coming out of this. Maybe you're going to need different people doing different things. Maybe your processes are going to have to dramatically change. What could they be? What would those processes look like? What are you wanting to measure that's going to create success or that's going to equal success? And of course, back to your guiding compass, what do you want to be described as? So make sure that you're looking at those things, paying attention to those 6 Ps. We talk a lot about attitudes and behaviors and beliefs and judgments. Somebody shared an interesting definition with me the other day where they said fear and faith have the same definition. And I kind of went, oh, that's interesting. It's believing what you think will happen. So if you have fear, you believe that's what's going to happen. If you have faith, you believe that's what's going to happen as well. And that obviously impacts your actions. Here's what I would say. At this time, now more than ever, it's important that you journal. Make sure you keep your head on straight. We are going to go through tough times. We're going to have low points. We're going to have difficult times. That is going to happen. But if you journal and you go through, what am I grateful for today? What is still in my world? How can I help others be better today? If you start to have those thoughts, you're going to come at it from a mindset of gratitude and plentiful and plenty versus a mindset of scarcity and fear. And that's really important if you're a leader, because your people are going to feed off of that. So I talked a little bit about elements of our attitude. We talk about commitment. What are you committed to? Your desire, outlook, and responsibility. And I did a lot of skiing this year with my son, and so we go to the mountains and we hurdle down the hill as fast as we can. We're definitely not professional skiers, but it made me think about the downhill skier, the professionals, and what they can control and what they can't control. And so a lot of times when they get to the hill, they can't control the snow conditions. They can't control the way the course is laid out. They can't control what time the meet starts at. They can't control what competitors they're up against or what order they're in. They can't control any of that. But here's what they can control. They can control their nutrition, their sleep, their equipment. They can control that. So in today's world, make a list of the things you can control. There are so many things you can't control. Write down what you can control and then pay attention to them. Pay attention to them and control them with passion and vigor, right? Make sure that you're focused on those items very specifically. The other option we have right now is to rewrite some of our beliefs, what this crisis might be allowing you to do. This is a big one, taking time to work on the business. One of the people in my business networks shared a story about how they are taking this time right now to craft kind of a strategy rollout that they were going to do in the fall, but they decided they could do it now. Working on your business. If you've got a sales team, it's a great time to work on your sales playbook. What does that really look like? What should that look like? It's a great time to look at internal processes that you have, why you have them, what can you change, right? There's a lot of things that you can do. There's other things. What can what's truly important to your client? It allows you to figure that out and have maybe more meaningful conversations today than you've ever had in the past because you were just so busy just trying to, fulfill things. Now it's going to give you actual time to talk to them, maybe get a little bit deeper and go into how do we make that relationship stronger. Here's the other one. Get ahead of your competition. Your competition might be putting their head in the sand right now. They might be freaked out, scared, nervous, going, oh, this is the end of the world. This is your time to shine. And you have the opportunity to come across as different, more unique, more engaged, more helpful than your competitor. And if you do that, when everything goes back into place, man, your team could be further ahead. Maybe you become a stronger, more pressure-tested team, right? Somebody said that. We're in this together. This could bond you as a team tighter than you've ever been bonded before, and then can allow you to achieve things you never thought were possible. This is the classic underdog story. We watch these movies because we love to see that underdog come through these amazing challenges only to come out on top. And it just allows you to really connect and gel. And I was watching a movie the other day with my boys, kind of an old one from Disney, about the Jamaican bobsledders. And it's kind of a humorous take, but it's really about a team that gels in the face of adversity when they're the underdog. And it's a great story. And I think a lot of us can maybe take advantage of that story for the future. So question for you guys, how is your team selling behavior changed as a result of this crisis, COVID-19? Get into the chat. Give me some ideas. What's changed for you? What have you done a little bit differently? We'll open it up. Some people can write some things in there. Increased empathy. I see a lot of that. We're more empathetic. We see a couple people talk about Obviously, more cross-sell, upsell opportunities, more patience, right? Yeah, salespeople are always in it for what's today, and this is a lot about what's the future. More strategic, love it. More time asking for questions, alternative offerings. So it's making us be a lot more creative as a sales team, and that's pretty exciting when you think about it. Because if we can build that into our team today, think about how they could behave in the future when when the economy does come back, and some of those skills, talents, and abilities now can be executed in that environment. It could really set us off for a launch point, which is really exciting. Another thing to think about at this point is we use a model called DISC, and we said rediscover your employees. If you're a leader, it's a great time to go, who do I have on my team? So if you've been in Sandler before, you're familiar with DISC. If you've never been through Sandler before, you may not be familiar with DISC. And really all DISC is a personality. It's kind of like a personality behavioral profile tool that we use. And the reason we use it is to help leaders better understand their teams so that they can communicate more effectively. So, we've got a couple of categories here. We've got the dominants of the world. So dominants, these are people who are kind of like action oriented. They're about, making things happen. They're about task oriented first. And under fear and pressure, they fear loss of control. Well, right now we know there's a lot of loss of control out there. There's a lot of things happening that people are going, man, I have no control over this. They become a little impatient when they're under pressure and stress. We might have to help these people and talk them off the ledge that, listen, we're playing the long game right now. Listen, what can you control? What are the behaviors and actions we can help you with? Because they're going to be struggling with some of that. You might have a bunch of influencers on your team. And trust me, if you are in sales leadership, I guarantee you probably have a bunch of extroverted salespeople, outgoing, social, friendly, right? They love going out for lunch with people. They love going for coffees. They love networking. What's happening to them right now? What are they fearing? Well, right now, they're fearing social separation and rejection. It's tough, right? So they might be really afraid to reach out to new accounts because they're like, oh, I don't want to offend them. They might be sitting alone at home, really demotivated right now because there's nobody to talk to, or they're not interacting with people around the water cooler. As a leader, you need to engage these people. You need to make it fun. You might need to have like your Friday afternoon happy hour. I've seen a lot of businesses do that, where they gather the team, they get their favorite drink at home, and they have their Friday afternoon happy hour. It's a way to stay connected. Your steady relators. This is typically the biggest group that we have in a company. They're reliable. They're good one-on-one with people, but they often are slow to change. And right now, change is coming at them 100 miles an hour. You might have a sales rep who's been on your team for years who said, that LinkedIn stuff, you know what? I don't need it. I'm old school. I like to be face to face. Well, we know that in this environment, that's not even possible. So somebody in that world, they're going to be really struggling with that change. And we are going to need to put together a plan to help them get proficient in some of these new skills that they need that they've never had to need before. So it's going to be really important with those people to give them a plan and a how, because they really feel isolated and they really feel like they might be struggling with some of those changes. And then you've got the compliance of the world, and these are the thinkers, they're the task-oriented people, they're the analyzers. They want everything to be perfect and really put together. Well, we know, again, it's really tough right now. There's not a lot of data out there, and they fear making mistakes. Well, what if I do that wrong? What if I send that email out and somebody doesn't like it? What if, right? And again, that leads to indecisiveness. We need to help these people go, hey, you know what? We don't need to be perfect. We don't have all the answers, but there is a step-by-step process here. So if you don't understand who your employees are and you don't understand their different styles, DISC is a great tool for that. Offline after the webinar, if you're interested, you can reach out to us. If you haven't used DISC, we can help you out with that if that's important. But remember this statement: you got to lead your team and manage the individual. So there's a difference, right? Leading the team, the goals, the focus, where we're going to go, how we're going to get there. but everybody on your team as an individual needs to be managed differently. If you are talking to every one of your people exactly the same way, you're probably not taking into account their different styles and their different fears. So you're going to have to ask yourself as a leader, what is this person about? What are they probably scared of? What are they struggling with? How can I help them with that? And it might look completely different for somebody on your team. Maybe Sally is completely different than Jerry. And you need to be able to recognize that as a leader and then make some adaptations and adjustments. So behaviors, right? We talked a lot about attitudes, mental stuff. Now, what are the new behaviors that we need to be thinking about? So we shared this with the sales on the sales webinar last week. We're sharing it again because there are new behaviors. We got to identify what they are. One thing that would be really valuable is ride-alongs right now. So as leaders, one of the things I hear is, I don't have time to watch my salesperson do a call. Or, you know what, I don't actually have time to get on a call. I got 15 other things to do. I've never watched them sell. Now is the time. I was talking to one of my other clients. They said to me, Chad, I was lucky if I would go on one meeting with my sales team, like in a quarter. Like if I had one guy out, I'd go travel out there. I had to fly there. And then of course, so I had a lot of travel time. So I only saw them maybe once a quarter. So I rarely saw them do any kind of sales. I couldn't coach them. I couldn't really help them. I couldn't really advance their career, get them better, at what they were doing. Well, now more than ever, we have time to do this, right? The virtual ride along. People are using Zoom. People are using GoToMeeting. People are using Skype. Any one of those things allows us to have multiple people on the call, and now we can go on the ride along. Or the other cool thing is they can record them. So, if they don't want you in the call or they feel it's uncomfortable to have you kind of sitting there as a face, your team can record everything they do and then they can share it with you. You can do the ride-alongs virtually as you watch them, and then now you got coaching material. It's a tremendously powerful tool for you to advance your team and get them better. So that could definitely be a new behavior. By the way, there's a new book out, Sandler just released, I think, in the last week, called The 21st Century Ride-Along. If you're interested, again, you can always email us after the webinar, and we can talk about how we get that book for you, but it's something out there. Goals. All right, this is the other thing, smarter, right? We talk about specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, enjoyable, and rewarding. I'm not going to do a deep dive into goals. We probably all spend time setting goals with our team and our people. Here's what I will say. Now more than ever, we need tighter control on the goals. In other words, more oversight, because we need to be doing course correction every day or every week. It's not, we can't be behind. We can't take a month to change course. This is a week by week, day by day, hour by hour. We might find that our company needs to pivot with their products and services, but if we're not talking to our customers about what we can do, we might not be able to pivot fast enough. But if our sales team or inside salespeople are not connecting, we may not know this. So we need to pay attention to the little goals. Like we need to reach out to every single one of our clients within a week, right? So if we have 100 clients, that means it's 100 calls. That might be something we need to pay attention to. So I was watching, I was watching a documentary on Top Gun, not the movie, and they talk about paying attention to the next 3 seconds, not the next 3 minutes, because things happen so fast. Well, we are in that chaotic environment right now of massive quick change. So we need to be razor focused on the behavioral goals that we are asking people to do every single day. We need to be checking in the morning and checking in at the end of the day to make sure that we are on track and then pivoting and changing them where we need to. So we might start off with, hey, let's start off with a goal. We're going to prospect IT service companies. Let's pretend that's our goal. We have a list of 100 people. We're going to reach out and see how we can help those people because we have this ability or this service. As we go through those calls and make them, maybe we find out that it's the wrong product or the wrong service and it's not really going to be helpful. Okay, we need to take that out. We need to now, maybe we need to call the agricultural sector because we know that we can solve these problems. Okay, let's pivot to that goal. So it's really important to stay razor focused on the goals that we are applying to our team. One thing that I had heard from another one of my clients was, Chad, I talk to my people now more than ever. In the past, I didn't have a lot of time for them. Now I'm really focused on communication, and that's great. But if we put a little bit of structure around our communication rhythm, we're going to get a lot more out of interaction that we have with people. It's going to be a lot more positive. Talking about daily huddles, right? Maybe you have a Monday and a Friday, right? What's our company-wide purpose? What are we here for? What are we doing, right? How are we uplifting each other in those sessions? You can make them fun. You can make them about work. I did talk about the happy hour thing that a lot of companies are doing Fridays at 4. It's just a way to really connect. Daily deliverables. What are we got to deliver today? What does that look like? What are the activities? Daily coffee breaks. We used to have coffee breaks. We used to go down to the staff room. Maybe we can't do that anymore, but we can still have a 10 o'clock coffee break and get everybody into in some kind of platform to video conference with each other. Monday morning check-ins, Friday afternoon checkouts. That's the next one. Those are those individual one-on-ones where we're talking about goals for the week, things they want to achieve, what's their plan, and then of course, did they get it? Did they achieve their goal? What made them achieve that goal? So there's another thing to talk about. Personal development check-ins. What are they working on, right? We talked about earlier, if we don't use this time to work on a specific skill, we're probably just not that motivated to get better. Now more than ever, right? We can work on skills that we haven't had the time to work on, whether that's technological skills, whether that's phone call skills, whether that's email skills. It doesn't matter what it is, but everybody on your team should have some personal development plan in place that they're working on, because they're not having as many meetings. And if we think about it, all that unproductive time your team used to have, if you had an outside sales team that spent time in a car, on a plane, if you added up all the hours they spent driving, that was unproductive. What could they be doing with that now? And if we look, most companies, probably 30% of their week was spent in unproductive time. You have got all that time back. You've got, it's come back in spades, right? That means like, if you got 25% or, you know, whatever, you're talking like 8 hours of personal development time that you could use to get better. What a time to learn. I know it, you know, if you're part of the Sandler network, we've opened up some of our online learning under the, if you go to aon.sandler and then /sell, there's a bunch of online learning that we made for free for people. If you're interested, feel free to go to our website, but it's great for sales teams to sharpen the saw and really get better. But you need to look at your communication. Is it consistent? Is it intentful? Is it uplifting? Is it goal-oriented, right? Is it about making sure that our team is still proactive in their behaviors? All of that's going to make us more successful. So we redefine maybe some of the behaviors that we're looking at in this crisis. So new normal, new habits. Short term, we already talked about that. We talked a little bit about gratitude. I really want to talk about the last bullet point though. Shine brighter than our competition through our client relationship and our actions. What a time to support your customer. What a time to forge a relationship other than a transactional relationship. What a time to be proactive and reach out and say, I want to help you. What can I help you with? Right? If your team has not had that discussion about what you can do and to really shine brighter than your competition, I think you're missing out on an opportunity, because there's going to be certain things that are happening right now. And I don't know if you ever played Monopoly when you were a kid. It's a long game, right? So maybe you and your brothers, your cousins, your friends had the game out on the kitchen table, and mom came in and mom said, you guys got to stop playing the game. It's done. You got to get out of here. Supper time, whatever. We had some opportunities there when that happened. One, we could flip the game board over and say, that's it. I can't believe it. You know, you're ruining our fun. I'm going home. I'm done. You know, we call that flight. Or, you know what, maybe you go, okay, well, let's stop and count the money and maybe we'll continue next day. So that's freeze, right? Some of your competitors are in freeze mode. Let's just not do anything. I don't know what to do. Oh my God. Or you can keep playing the game. So the competitor, maybe they go home. You can keep rolling the dice. You can still keep building your properties. There's opportunity here. You can build your audience. every crisis presents an opportunity. Keep playing the game. So there's a lot of behaviors there that we can do. In Sandler, we break this up into the care quadrants. Just a suggestion here, right? We have clients we want to keep. What are we doing for those clients, right? Upsell, cross-sell opportunities. Somebody wrote that in the comments box. Maybe you want to create a little grid, right? So down one side, you list all of your customers today. So maybe there's 100 of them, right? You write them all down. And across the top, you write down all the stuff you sell to them. So maybe you look at ABC Widget Company and you say, ABC Widget Company, what do they buy from us? They buy product A, but they don't buy product B. Okay, can they buy product B? Would they ever buy product B? No, they can't. What about product C? Yeah, they could buy that one. Boom. Now we've got a cross-sell, upsell opportunity. If we go through and create a grid of all of our current clients, what they're buying, what they're not buying, what they could buy, what a great time to reach out to them and see if there's other opportunities to sell them something, frankly, they're not buying from you today. Consolidate, right? Get them into your world, get them stronger into your world. If they're still buying and they're still open and they're still, they still have some revenue, it might be perfect to do that. So that could be an activity that you could do with your keep accounts. Recapture. What about all the people that you haven't done business with for a while, for whatever reason? Proactively reaching out to them. Maybe you had some quotes you did in the past. Maybe you could reach out to them. Expand. So we do some business. So keep and expand. I just kind of explained the grid there. That might be an expand activity. And then, of course, prospecting is the attain, right? Where we haven't done business with you and we're looking for new opportunities. We might want to create some behaviors around that. So there's opportunities in all four of those quadrants. We have a little Sandler rule. You can't manage anything you can't control, and you can only really manage your behavior. So create the right behaviors, you're going to get some results. All right, so let's talk about skills. We talked about attitude, we've talked about behavior. What are some sales skills today that are more important today than ever, right? What are some of those? So I want you to take a second. What are some skills that you believe your team needs to have today, now more than ever? Take a chance, pull up the chat box, write down a couple of things in there. So I see one here, third-party stories, clear communication on expectations, social selling. I like that one. Yeah, we got to have that one. Charisma, okay. That's probably a mindset maybe, but you can definitely get better at, providing some good energy, positive attitude. Organization is a skill, very important as well. Questioning strategies is another one that I hear a lot. Asking better questions because we might need to find or look for opportunities that we didn't have in the past. Time management, making sure they know how to manage their time at home, and that kind of goes back to the keep, attain, recapture kind of behaviors that we want to have out there. So maybe they need different upfront contracts for people. Maybe they need different pain stories. Somebody says tech knowledge. Strong 30-second commercials. Yes, absolutely. They need to work on those skills to open up new dialogue. Very important as well. So we want to dig a little bit into some technique things here. Developing our team's technique. What does that look like? All right, coaching, right? As a leader, one of your techniques to work on, though, is your coaching ability. So what does that really mean? Does your team know what to do, right? Do they absolutely understand, what are the behaviors, how to do that? What does a 30-second commercial sound like today? What should it sound like? What should it not sound like? Are you sharing best practices from one individual to another? Are you that person that can help pick up some new ideas or new thoughts from one group and share it with another group inside your organization? Creating momentum with sales contests. That's another thing you can do right now. Can you make it fun and enjoyable? Is there something that you can do that's like a little bit interesting? There's an app out there that we sometimes use in training called Kahoot. And you can maybe play little games if you want to develop skills. It allows you to go into this app and then create like a little contest, like a quiz. And you can use that as a little, maybe a little contest inside your team about product knowledge skills. Maybe you want to develop that a little bit more so you can make that fun instead of like arduous. So when you look at coaching right now, your ability to get in there, talk one-on-one, uncover what's going on in their heads, what skill gaps they're missing, and then creating a plan forward to help them improve. If you haven't built a coaching plan for every single one of your team players that reports directly into you, it could be a great time for you to do that right now and spend the time actually creating that. Another thing, technique, update your playbooks. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. If you don't have a playbook, what a better time than now to actually create one. And you know what? It can be very dynamic. So a lot of people, when we work with teams to create playbooks, you know, what do? We want to map out the sales process as it stands today. What are the steps in the process? You'll want to map out what are the questions you want to ask at each step, what's going to be important. And then you're going to want to map out what's the commitment you need your customer or prospect to make at each step. So documenting that can be very valuable. Documenting best questions, documenting stories. You could even have your maybe two of your salespeople who are who have a lot of expertise. They could actually record maybe a role play about executing a first meeting that you could then share with the team, right? So there's lots of ways to update a sales playbook. Really good. Fuzzy files for clients. What does that mean? That means what are some things that we want to find out about our current customers that we can then recognize them for? So a fuzzy file would be, hey, they got an award for, I don't know, best company or best managed company, or maybe it's when their birthday is or when their kid's soccer tournament is or something. Just things that we want to remember, that we want to put in our CRM, that we can then act on and do something about. So you might want to be listening for significant events in your customer's life. Maybe it's their work anniversary. Maybe it's they got promoted, right? Just something that you can do to recognize them. Objection handling, a great thing to practice with a team and get inside your playbook. Make sure that you have them clearly listed out. Obviously price is probably one of the most common objections that we see. So when somebody says your price is too high, what are some of the actions that you can take to deal with that issue, right? So if you know that 80% of the time in a meeting, especially with a first client or prospect, they say, hey, your price is too high, that's your opportunity to go, okay, well, how would we circumvent that? What would we say? Maybe we need a preemptive strike with that, where we would say, hey, Bill, a lot of times when we talk to new customers, the first thing out of their mouth is our price is too high. Is that something that we're going to have to deal with here as well? Maybe that's one strategy to deal with that objection. In your playbook, you want to have multiple strategies. You should have 3 to 4 of them because not every one of them fits the situation. And then what you could do with it, once you've got all your objections laid out and the responses, now you could practice it. You could get all your team on a Zoom call, and then you could just throw it out there and you could say, okay, Bill, give an objection to Sally, go. And they try to practice the objection. You stop, you give some feedback, do it with somebody else until we're so adept at it, it's muscle memory. Great time to do that. You can get your playbook really laid out. So when we talk about when we get to the end here, build social capital. This is a great time to give back to your clients. Give first, listen. Make sure you build your relationships. This is we're all going through this together. Again, the more contact we have with our customers, it's going to be awesome. Authority by adding value. What can we do from a learning, teaching perspective? And then be personal. You know what? When things are rough, it's okay to share. I mean, we're all in this together. I know in business, sometimes we kind of say we don't really give people the honest truth about where we're at or how we're feeling. But right now, it's not a sense of failure if we're struggling. It's just the truth. And so we can absolutely connect with people on a deeper level than we've ever done before. Now, as a leader, I wanted to show this one slide up here. We are partnered with a company called Outmatch. And what we do with a lot of our clients is assessments. And what do those assessments do? They help us understand where our gaps are and where our strengths are. Right now, we're all leading through a crisis. Our partner, Outmatch, has created an assessment report called Leading Through a Crisis. So there you go. It's free. We've actually, if anybody who's on this call wants to access that assessment, you can email us, email going to sandler.com or email chad.bandman@sandler.com. and we can send you the link to this assessment. I'm just showing you my assessment up here right now, where some of my strengths are, what some of my top competencies are. And then you can drill down into this and see where some of your gaps are and things you might want to work on. So in this case, I'm going to be pretty supportive, but my communication style isn't maybe as good as it could be. So we can drill down into this. So here's the thing. If you want to do the assessment, it comes with a 20-minute interaction with myself where we're going to do some coaching around what this means for you as a leader. There is no charge for that 20 minutes. There's no charge for the assessment, but you do need to, commit 20 minutes to a debrief if you want to do it. So it's just something that came out this week from the company we work with called Outmatch. It's pretty interesting. It could probably give you a lot of data about yourself, create some awareness, and then let you work on something in your game that's going to make you a better leader through this crisis as well. So that's something I wanted to put out as an offer to everybody on the webinar today. So as a result of today, you need to take action, right? Listening to something is always good, but you need to do either some change in your attitude and your behavior or technique that you can actually implement that's going to add value to your team and your company. So take a minute, maybe throw something if everybody wants to share on the chat box there about something they're going to change. Just pull that chat box down, type in something that you're going to do a little bit different. In terms of what we have to offer, there's more webinars coming up. We have one every Thursday at 11. You can go to our website and get in there and register for more webinars. They're coming up. We have the Sandler, aon.sandler.com/sell. That is all of the free materials we're giving out there. And of course, I talked about the free leadership crisis assessment, 20-minute debrief. So if that's something that has some interest to you, feel free to reach out to us and we can go down that path together as well. So I'm seeing here people are going to be more supportive. They're going to have more phone calls, reach outs, personal development. All right, lots of good stuff here. So regular phone interactions, I see that as well. Awesome. All right, so that ends the prepared topic that we have for today, which is how to lead during a crisis and how to be more successful at it, how to succeed. If anybody has any further questions, we'll stay on for a minute or two longer. We can answer some questions. If you have any, we'll just look at what comes through there. Other than that, this will be available. We are recording it. We will be providing everybody with a link to it, and then you can share it with other people in your network. Absolutely no problem.